welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Eichner, and with me is Jace Frederick from the Pioneer Press. Jace, how you doing?
Hey, Ryan, good man. About you?
I am good. Ready for the playoffs, although I kind of like I don't know if you saw what David Edelman said out in Denver when he was asked if he's pumped up and ready for the playoffs, and he goes, "It's Wednesday." Well,
Yeah,
it's Thursday out here, and so
that's right.
kind of the same feeling where we got a little bit of time to wait.
It is like when the matchup comes out, you're like, oh my God, here we go. Like, as of Sunday night and then Monday you're like thinking about it, and then eventually it's like Tuesday, Wednesday, and it's like, all right, I'm pretty ready for them to just play the games, but we're still a little ways out. So it's the weird middle period of like the game's not here yet, but the freshness is definitely wore off too. So I'm ready for basketball to be played.
Absolutely. I guess that's how it goes with the new play-in tournament. We're watching the Clippers and the just kind of looking at this. So the Warriors win last night.
Right.
37 wins has got to be the lowest if they beat the Suns on Friday. That's the lowest. And I saw some Suns people complaining about it, and I was kind of also like, okay, but if you can't win 2 home games to get into the playoffs,
Right.
like weren't you kind of dead on arrival anyway?
I think I remember even Draymond Green said it like, oh, when they clinched the 10 seed, they're like, all right, he even said, like, here's kind of the problem with the plan. Like, we're the 10 seed. He's like, we could have lost our last 15
Mm-hmm.
games and we still would have been the 10 seed. So I don't disagree with it of like some of these teams that you let be the 10 seed. It's kind of a joke, but I don't feel bad for Phoenix if they can't beat Portland or Golden State at home in a week, with into like you got to have it games. Like then you probably weren't a playoff team either, no matter how many games you won in the regular season. So I don't feel bad for anybody, but it is kind of a joke as well.
Yeah, and I think what's funny about that Draymond quote is he kind of actually undersold it. I don't know. I could go back and look at what the exact number was, but like I looked and it was like, no, you could have replaced that 15 number in 25, and your statement
Yeah.
is correct. Like there was a gap between them and 11.
It was literally them and all of the hardcore tanking teams. Like there were 10 teams in the West that weren't trying to lose every single game. And that was it. I guess the only team that wasn't trying to lose every game, it seemed like, was Sacramento, who just was doing that just fine on its own.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I agree.
In New Orleans a little bit.
Yeah, New
Just
Orleans
because
was
they don't have
trying
their
and just
pick.
bad. Right. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's stop talking. The Wolves are not in the play-in anymore. We can leave the play-in aside, even though I did bring it up. Let's talk about this Denver playoff matchup here. And I think the place to start, as with every Timberwolves topic, is Anthony Edwards and what is he going to look like in the playoffs? He's had his first 4 postseasons, I think, have all been incredible from him. Obviously up and down moments, but like he's looked every part of the player you want him to be, and this is his first regular season that he hasn't been fully healthy. So like my first question for him, for if you have more information on this than I do, is like, is he healthy? And I guess, is there going to be rust like to come out in that first game on Saturday?
I think like sharpness is a fair question. I think what's good for Minnesota is they generally do take this week of like pretty intense practices. And if there is rust, you can almost shake it off within this setting, just with how hard they go at it. So I think like it's a pretty good simulation for like training camp for them. So this is kind of like game 1 of the regular season. Like you wouldn't consider rust to be a thing for that. So I don't think you would think there will be much rust here. As far as health, he talked about being down to like 218 pounds yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
where he was at like 226 in the middle of the season. I think that's good. I think that's more of like a fit peak athletic weight for him. So that should be a positive. And, he did get that game in against Houston, where he played really well in the second half after maybe was a little bit rusty. But I think so. You take that game and then you take this week of practice, and he seems to like where he's at physically. And yeah, like the knee pain and whatnot, it could pop up at any moment again, so that's always possible. But I think he's probably in a decent spot heading into the series to where you can expect to see kind of what we've seen from playoff Ant in recent years.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about the start of the regular season. Maybe if there was no play-in tournament and the first game, like if they had already played 2 of these games in this series by now, maybe there would be rust. But like at a certain point, like everyone has a week off, and
Right.
so I'm guessing the first 2-3 minutes of the series for all 10 players on the court is going to be a little bit of a feel it out type of deal. So maybe that helps Ant, where it's like, yeah, he might be rusty in the first 2 minutes, but like so will Jokic, so will Murray, like so will everyone. And then maybe for the knee on the same, it sounds like it's an injury that like obviously rest is great, but like it's not a linear recovery, and so it might flare up as it seemed like it kind of did toward the end of the regular season. So maybe in a one, if like for this series it's not a factor, but maybe if the Wolves advance, and then maybe it's a factor down the road. But I guess if we're talking about advancing, we got champagne problems or whatever, and it's not. It's as they'll tell you, it's one game, one series at a time. But yeah,
That
I think that like the line was pills and injectables. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that to that extent it'll be an issue, right?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's that it's to that like, oh wow, they're just barely holding this thing together. I don't think that's the case. I do think that's the interesting thing for both teams in this series is like uh, especially with Ant, and then Jaden and even Nas with his stuff that just seems like it's going to linger
Mm-hmm.
with the shoulder and whatnot. And then like Aaron Gordon and his hamstring and Peyton Watson, we don't even know if he'll be available for game one yet with his hamstring. Like these are things where it's like you just assume it's more likely to re-aggravate the longer you play. And so these two teams that are probably going to really tax one another, whoever comes out of the series, it's going to have been through a hard fought battle. Uh, I think that both these teams are going to kind of get each other's best shot. And then whoever emerges out of it is like, well, I hope we have enough left, physically, health wise, all of that stuff to be able to go from here. Because, like, I just keep thinking back to, like, yes, Golden State played that 7-game series against Houston, and you could tell it just must, like, that battle had to have contributed to Steph getting hurt in game one of the Wolves series.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it is like that's the advantage in my mind of winning a lot of games in the regular season and giving yourself a fairly like ease in path to the playoffs is that it's such a marathon that if you can maybe make things just a little bit easier for yourself in round one, round two if possible, but especially round one, like you just negate some of the risk or some of the wear and tear. And these two teams now are going to like they're in I wouldn't say like a bad spot, but precarious spot health wise, both teams. And they're both going to have, a difficult run from round one on if they're planning to make deep postseason pushes here.
Yeah, I think your point. I remember last year Denver fans said something like, "Oh, we're in referring to their game 7 against Oklahoma City. We're like, oh, we're one game away from winning another title." And I remember be like,
No
I
way.
in a like a full in a no in a fully healthy series, I understand like their confidence in beating the Wolves, but I was like,
Yeah.
dude, Aaron Gordon was on one leg generously, and like if they had beaten OKC somehow with Aaron Gordon on one leg, like the Wolves would have beaten them with Aaron Gordon at his current shape. Like, and so that's the thing. Like they played 6 or 7 against the Clippers the round before, and the Wolves, on their side of the bracket, dispatched with the Lakers in 5 games. And I think if this is probably more for looking at Denver, who has more championship equity than the Wolves do. Like, I just kind of think I don't know if you can go in the playoffs playing 6 or 7 game series all the way through. I think like the '08 Celtics are the only team to do that, and
Yeah.
I
Right.
would kind of posit on that. Like I think their first or second round series was maybe them more playing with their food than actually
Yeah.
like what
I
this
mean, it
series
was,
projects to be, which is like an all out drag out fight.
I mean, I think that first series was against like a 37 or 38 win Hawks team. Where it was like, how did you end up in a seven? How did the eventual champion have to go 7 games with that Hawks team?
Was that Jeff Teague? No, before Jeff Teague.
Jeff Teague was on that team. Yes. Yes,
That's
he was
why.
on it
Then there you go.
very early in the
Because
Jeff Teague era in Atlanta. Yep.
quick Jeff Teague aside, if we're thinking about Nuggets Wolves history, Teague hits like kind of the game winning shot in that game 82. He hits like a floater, I think, in overtime. And of course, he has a clip on it in his pod where he's like, I did not want the ball. I just threw that thing up there and it went in. Obviously, I think people remember the Taj Gibson defensive plays down the stretch.
Right.
Like, Jeff Teague, of all people, hits the game winner to send the Wolves to the playoffs.
Yeah, that was still an all-time. I mean, like it really is like the start of the Wolves Nuggets rivalry. To some extent, it didn't feel like a rivalry at that point. It felt like two teams that were just in the same spot. But it is like it's the
Right.
first edition of like meaningful basketball they played. And so it is just kind of on the list of memories of kind of some pretty awesome basketball. Like you can talk about like the playoffs and whatnot, but like a lot of great regular season games too, and just like just seemingly every time they get together, it feels like a big game, and more than 50% of the time, it delivers as a big game. And so that's kind of what's created. It's maybe some heat, but there doesn't feel like a ton of heat sometimes. It's just like this, just two teams that love to go at it, and deliver so many memorable things that you're just like when it's Wolves Nuggets. I'd imagine like obviously local fans in Denver and Minneapolis circle that, but also, I think just basketball fans around the country are probably like, "Oh, I want to see that,"
Hmm.
and that's where I feel like I'm at with this matchup.
Yeah, and at least with that game 82 back in 2018, like the
Yeah.
Wolves roster has fully turned over since then. But like the Nuggets, their top two players are their still same top two players, and that was the last time they missed the playoffs. They have the second longest active playoff streak, and that was that was the last time they missed the playoffs. It would have been 9 if the Wolves had lost that game. So yeah, a lot of history, maybe more with the fan base as like even the Wolves were out. Like I think that's an interesting point. Like the top players on each team are the same, but like the Wolves roster is a lot different functionally with Julius instead of Cat, and I think Porter Jr. instead of Cam Johnson. Obviously, I think it'd be fair to like that trade even in a down season for Cam Johnson made still makes sense for them, but like they don't have this like and Michael Porter Jr.'s had a pretty darn good season in Brooklyn. As anyone, if that's even possible to have a good season in Brooklyn, but let me divert us back to Ant. I think I asked Finch about this at practice in a couple days ago, and Ant was asked about it. I think Denver's going to throw just everything similar to what the Wolves will throw at Jokić, but like Denver, because they don't have like a traditional either rim protector or traditional like all NBA defender to throw at Ant, I think they're going to throw a lot of like double teams, maybe even like some junk defense of like or zone or just like on the game in March 1st, they picked them up at half court. Like
Hmm.
they by the end of that game, they were anyone else. In some ways that makes sense to basically funnel the ball to Rudy Gobert. In other ways, especially in the regular season, I don't think that makes sense. Like it just kind of it jumpstarts the Wolves offense when you more or less force them to make that first pass. Um, but I think a big aspect of this series, obviously, like just Ant scoring a billion points or 30 plus is going to be necessary. But I do think like how he deals with the doubles, the hedges, the everything Denver throws at him, I think is going to be incredibly important because I don't think obviously like the Wolves won the series 2 years ago where Jokic was still clearly the best player in the series, but like I think this time around Ant doesn't have to be better than Jokic, but like it has to be like, oh, those two guys went toe to toe. Like there can't be this giant chasm, I guess. So my question is like, do you think he can? Does he have like the regular or like from the regular season, like the ability to like just truly pick apart every single type of defense that gets thrown his way?
I mean, he knows how to do it. He has seen them all. He
Right.
knows what works against all of them. So it really is like it's a bit of a choice. And I think what's hard for him is like, yes, when they picked him up at half court, he made that pass to Rudy a lot, especially in the fourth quarter of that game where the Wolves were up like 7 to 9 points and he would make the right play. And that's a regular season game where they were ahead. I think what gets difficult is when they do that and it's the fourth quarter of a playoff game and the Wolves are down four. Um, those are the spots where I kind of wonder if Ant's not like, I need to shoot this. And I'm not even
Mm-hmm.
saying it's bad when he like races a blitz and he tries to just run around it, because when he successfully does that, which we've seen him do many times, that really breaks down a defense. And now the extra pass comes out to like a Nas Reed three or something, like it did in the Lakers series last year for some big shots. But it's picking your spots on that. It's knowing like, okay, first, second quarter, if they do give you that look, then it's Rudy. And then at the end of the game, if you feel like you need to have it more in your hands and you don't want to trust Rudy when you're down four and you needed bucket, that's fine. Then like the other way is just more energy taxing. So you have to pick your spots, I think, in it. Uh, I would worry a little bit more about the zone of like junking it up with that, which Adelman's version of the Nuggets has done a lot of. That actually kept them competitive in the Oklahoma City series. That was one of their better defensive looks, frankly, was going to that zone look and forcing Oklahoma City's outside shooters to hit shots, which they really did in all postseason. You can do the same thing with Minnesota. The Wolves have good shooters, but we even saw like their role player shooters struggled at points in last year's playoffs. Dante, Nas, like multiple guys did. Then it's like, okay, this zone is forcing you to get to that stuff, and can Ant trust it? It's kind of like Ant picking his spots of knowing, okay, now is a good time for me to be aggressive and not but deciding maybe early in the games to try to get other guys involved so that in the fourth quarter you can be super aggressive, and then when the time comes where they totally collapse on you and you kick out, other guys have had touches and you still have the energy to be that aggressor at the end of games because you didn't force it from the outset. So I think these are all things that he's worked on, and he knows and he's seen it all. It's reminding himself like, okay, this is the playoffs. How do I usually handle this? How do I have the most success? And going with those kind of approaches. And those will be hammered in his head all week. And those will be hammered in his head throughout the game by the coaching staff, his veteran teammates, all of that. It's just putting it into action and giving yourself the best chance of success throughout the game. But then also, I think we expect some close games here. So, like, can you be the best version of yourself at the end of the games where, yeah, you might need to go nuclear to kind of combat what is that two-man game on the other side for Denver? Like, I know they struggled in
Mhm.
clutch time, Denver did, like earlier in the season. I watched a lot of their games down the stretch for seeding purposes, and Denver was really good offensively late in games, and they got whatever look they wanted. And so, like, even if Minnesota plays well defensively, Denver's going to generate good looks on the other end. That is maybe when you're going to need like a heightened version of Ant to combat that, to try to make outmatch it. So he needs to make sure that he's taking an approach throughout the game that keeps Minnesota in it, and then can give himself a chance to get the team over the top at the end.
Yeah, Denver. I knew that Denver's clutch time play this year had been a storyline for them, and I kind of always went. I think that's like over analysis based on. I'm talking about like from the Nuggets side of things, like where here it's not like baseball where like in baseball I would almost argue like clutch play almost doesn't exist. Like it's just another at bat, it's just another moment. And to a certain extent, I think like that is that there's some of that in basketball. Well, there is a little bit more of like you step up your play. Good teams play better in the clutch than whatever. But I also kind of think like sometimes it feels like it's like, well, we were bad in the clutch, but like, but we're not breaking down if you were good in the minutes 2 through 7 of the second quarter. It's like a little bit part of me feels like it's just all you're doing is snipping a sample size, and if you're just going to take a smaller sample size, you're going to lead to more variance. And I think the Nuggets are kind of a good example of that. It's like they had been a good clutch team for decades, or not decades, excuse me, for a half decade. They've been an awesome clutch team to the point of like last season, the year before that, like their point differential didn't match their record because like they just won a bunch of close games. And so I think like them being lesser in clutch time this year, I don't think like that's. I think it's just like randomness almost, or maybe better yet, it was like because they were hurt so much of the year. Like that's especially when that's going to show. You're not going to have like we all know their starting lineup is so deadly. Like they didn't really have that starting lineup. So I don't know. That's kind of my rant on like the clutch time. I think that was from the Denver media side, maybe like an over analyzed topic. Do you kind of agree with me on like what I'm saying about like in general clutch time?
Yeah, I mean, I think over the course of the season, it can say something because it can mean like, can you lock down and
Mm-hmm.
get stops when you need to? Like, because that is when you see the most defensive effort, the most execution of game plans, the most coming out of a timeout. This team offensively is going to run this action. Can they get into what they need to get to? There's less transition generally in those points, so it is the most like half court, the most defensive attention on things, the most offensive like detailed execution. I agree with you on a night to night basis. It can be like, hey, these shots didn't fall this night and they did for this other team. And so we lost. And that doesn't necessarily mean there's a problem. I think over the course of the season, you can kind of see like, oh, okay, that team really can execute when it needs to. So I think there's value in that. Like you said, Denver's been excellent in clutch time in recent years. And that's because they're a really good basketball team. So I think that matters because you do see it play out. And then in the playoffs, you'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this team caved at the end, which they did, frankly, a lot during the season. So yes, and I think Denver is so unimpeachable in that part of the game that I wouldn't have worried about it from the outside perspective whatsoever when it was happening like that. But I also understand from like the Denver perspective, like the media perspective of, well, what else are we going to talk about? There are 82 games. Let's pick up some topics here to get into.
Yeah.
Like and because we have to talk about something over the course of these 6 months. So I
Mm-hmm.
get it from all sides, but I agree with you that I never once thought, oh, Denver's just not a good clutch team anymore. No thanks. I still would take them, especially running offense, over just about anybody in the NBA late in the games.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's move on to the other side of the court. With defense, and I kind of think what's interesting is like in the same way that we talk about like they don't have anyone to guard Ant, which I do think is a giant factor in this series. And I think you said this, I don't know, in the media room talking about whatever, and I'll steal your line here. Is like um, the Wolves don't really have anyone to guard Jokic either, and the difference there is that's not because they don't have the personnel; it's because that person might not exist. Jokic is certainly the best offensive player, all around offensive player of the last, I don't even need to put a year on it, since I've been watching the NBA more intently than I was like as a kid. Like certainly of not my lifetime, maybe because you could, I don't know, throw like, I don't know. I probably, there's an argument that he's the best offensive player ever, honestly. And he's at basically the peak of his powers. It was why I would have much preferred the Lakers. Not that the Wolves necessarily had a choice in that. Certainly, the minute the Lakers get injured, that changes that as well. But yeah, I think in the same way that like Denver's going to throw a bunch of crap at Ant because that's their only choice. I think for every team, but the Wolves are going to throw just a bunch of stuff at Jokic because you have to. Obviously, I think we've seen for the last 2 years since the Cat trade, like it's going to be mainly Rudy, and I think that makes sense, especially as Aaron Gordon has improved his shooting drastically. But I guess what other defense do you think that they can try to throw at him, and do you think it'd be successful? And the first one that I would say is, can they try to do the thing that every team does against him that the Wolves kind of did? The Wolves had the best version of this with Cat, but can they try to throw Ant or Io or someone of that on Jokic and double? And do the Wolves have the ability to execute that sort of scheme, do you think?
I don't think Ant would work. You have to be like really frisky as a defensive player, and Ant likes to play defense like with his body strength. You know, like it's like you can't get past me because I'm physically stronger than you. So when we've seen Ant get switched on to Jokic in the past, sometimes it is the most like, okay, I'll stand here, and then he backs him down to the hoop and gets like a layup. That happened in like the last 10 seconds of like a gotta have a stop game within the last year or two, and Ant just backed all the way down into the paint and it turned into like maybe the easiest Jokic layup I've ever seen. That's not who Ant is. Like I'm gonna front and battle this big guy. Like that's not where his defensive strengths lie. Because I just don't think that's his mentality at that end. Io is maybe their best option at it. I think Jalen Clark would be their best option at it, but I don't expect Jalen Clark to play in this series. But like if you want somebody
Yeah.
who's gonna like battle front, scratch claw, all of that stuff, leave Jokic with two like extra big scratch marks on his arms, like that's probably Jalen Clark. Io is somebody where like he maybe has some of that mentality, can be a little grabbier, all of that stuff, and just like if you give him that assignment, he might take it on, take it seriously. Obviously, Io isn't in the traditional starting lineup. Maybe they could go that way, but to start the game, you wouldn't expect it. But it could be something that they try to change up. I don't think it'll be their main approach. I really do think Rudy being the one-on-one defender will be their main approach of like, okay, Rudy, make it as difficult as possible, and we'll kind of try to help in as much as we can. I do think the Kyle Anderson angle is just from whenever I watched back of that game 2 years ago of like Kyle being maybe like the main disruptor on Jokic and making life really difficult because he would make it tough to throw the entry pass to him. Like it was hard for Denver to get Jokic the ball at various points because Kyle knows angles. Kyle is long. Kyle can get his hands in places. Kyle can, if Jokic has the ball, like pretty good at like poking the ball away, all of that stuff, make it difficult to get into. I think that could maybe be their secondary defender, like if Rudy's off the court or whatever. Like that could be their. It's also a changeup from Rudy. Like he's not Julius Nas. They're just going to be like, I'm just going to try to stand my ground here. Where Kyle is like, I'm going to try to not let him get the ball. I'm going to try to disrupt him by poking the ball away to get him out of rhythm. Like because I know I'm not strong enough to just like absorb this back down. So I think they have a few different things. They could try like the aisle fronting. Um, they could try to do some lurking. Depending on who's on the court. Maybe Rudy does try to do that off Christian Brown. I don't know if that would work. But they have different things they can try throughout the series. So I think that's the biggest thing is throughout the course of a game, throughout the course of the series, they can try like 5 different things and you'll have minimal success at various points with all of them. And you just hope that, hey, if you can buy yourself 3 minutes here for Denver to adjust or whatever, a guy misses shots, great. Because that's kind of how you have to win. You have to win on the margins when defending this Denver offense.
Yeah, I don't think there's. I mean, Denver was number one in the league in offensive rating this year by a little bit of a gap. They're just awesome, and they're obviously there's no stopping them. There's not. We're not going to have like a 99 to 98 score at the end. Like if you're gonna at a certain level, if you're gonna beat them, you're gonna have to outscore them. But obviously, like you can't give up 140, you can't give up 130. Like there needs to be some sort of defensive resistance. I think Julius guarding him would be interesting. That would more with Rudy on the court. That would more me to be more. I don't think that's their best defensive look. Would be Julius on Jokić and Rudy lurking, but it'd be more of like, okay, the last 3 possessions he's backed down Rudy and made a tough shot. Like let's just switch it up for the sake of switching it up. With Rudy off the court, I do think that would make some sense. Although you bring up Kyle Anderson, I do think that would make probably even more sense. Would have Kyle on him, and while I don't think Kyle in the same way Rudy is a little bit more able to go one-on-one with Jokić, I do think if you're having Kyle on him, it would be more of like maybe you're not full doubling, but like you got everyone, you got 5 feet in the paint or whatever. Like you got everyone focused on Jokić there. I think Christian Brown is in. If there is like a person to lurk off of in this series, it seems like it's not Gordon anymore. It's Christian Brown. I kind of feel like I mean, maybe I'm just underselling Christian Brown and the other things he does, but like, won't Denver just take him off the court and play Hardaway or play Bruce Brown? Like, I'm not sure that's the biggest fix. So I think just the best thing you can do, I think, is make Jokić a scorer, and it's not to say that's a good thing to do because he'll just throw up 60 on you. Like that's it's not an answer, but I do think the best version of this Denver offense is with like when Jokić has like 40 and he's got 15 assists and they're just raining threes on you. So if you can just, I don't know, like at least they're playing slower. Maybe if Jokić, this is the biggest part of the series. It's just like that guy. I mean, I like keeping track of like the greatest players of all time. I know it's incredibly subjective, but like this dude is like, if he wins the second championship, his ranking will have a single digit number behind it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should too. Like as you watch the game, it's like just sheer dominance, like of nobody has an answer for him, no matter what you throw at him. He has to be right up there. Like he's an incredible watch on a game to game basis. Just like of the different, no matter what you throw at him, he has the answer for it. Like, and it's immediate. Like he understands the game and his execution, his touch, all of it, touch passing, touch shooting. It's all really pretty incredible. And like even the effort he plays with defensively, like, yeah, he has physical limitations, but you'll watch him go out there and blitz Ant. It won't happen all game because you can't have him do it all game, but he'll do it 50 times. Like and that takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot out of a guy and you will not notice it on the other end. Like it's all pretty remarkable. I do think I put Christian Brown as like an X factor of this series because he is Denver's preferred defensive matchup for Ant because he has some athleticism, length, all of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like he's their best perimeter defender. So I do think that's one where if Minnesota could lurk and he misses a bunch of shots to the point where Denver feels the need to plug in like Tim Hardaway, who's been great this year. But just like as the shooting, because we can't have Brown's lack of shooting on the court, that's a win for Minnesota, at least in the respect of now Denver's main perimeter defenders off the floor. So now Denver's going to have to get even more aggressive. What they're going to do to take away Ant. So like it is a little bit of a push and pull of what Denver wants to do at that point. Do we sacrifice defense for offense, vice versa here? That it at least gives them a little bit more of a conundrum if you force their hand a little bit on the Brown issue and he misses some shots and doesn't figure out enough things off ball offensively.
Yeah, that's a good point. And a lot of these series, it's like who adjusts first, or maybe just in general, who adjusts to who. And so it's like if Denver is mothballing Christian Brown, or at least like reducing his minutes to more of a bench player, like that, even like that's like you mentioned, that's a win for Minnesota. If the Wolves have to, I think, really interesting is part of this series is like, can the Wolves generate enough offense with Rudy on the court, or honestly, Kyle Anderson fits into this too. If they're going to have, I mean, if the Wolves are going to have one of Kyle or Rudy on the court at all times, like I would be very dubious that they're going to be able to score enough. Even as those guys have been like positive net rating guys, I just don't know if you're going to be able to score enough with those guys on the court. And obviously Rudy's got to play minimum 25, 30 minutes. Like that's just my question. And can you, I don't know, if you're going to have to, I think if they have to take Rudy off the court, like I have a really hard time seeing how the Wolves win this series. I think, and it's probably why I'm not picking them, I think if the Wolves win this series, it's going to look like the last 3 minutes of the game they beat Denver in March, where they're hitting Rudy in the short roll and he's making the correct play. And it's why I'm dubious that they can do that, because they just haven't done it all year. And like you mentioned, the one time they did it, they were up by a couple points. And so, like, maybe in that situation, and it's more likely to throw the pass he doesn't want to throw. But I think, and it's kind of the fatal flaw, I think, of this version of this team, is that they just don't involve Rudy like he should. And obviously that's on Rudy too, for dropping this pass or that pass or not finishing. It's on the entire, it's on Tim Connolly, it's on Finch, it's on the coach, it's on the entire organization that, again, they've been incredibly good the past 2 years while not involving Rudy, right? Like, there's no shame in being one of the last 4 teams in the NBA. That's 2 awesome seasons. And even to a certain extent, if you get eliminated this series, like, there's been a lot of series. There's been a lot of Timberwolves seasons where you'd have killed for 49 wins and go into a series as big underdogs, but like not dead on arrival like you were, like we mentioned, the Jimmy Butler season with Houston. But at a certain point, I think they need to be able to either figure out this Rudy on offense thing or no longer have Rudy on the roster.
Yeah, I'm with you. You can't. It's hard to win a playoff series against a really good team if you can't play one of your 3 best players. Like, and Rudy, like, no matter how you rank it, like, it's hard to put the Wolves rankings together and not have Rudy in the top 3. Just in terms of general impact on the team and the success, specifically on one end of the court. And I agree with you. Like, if you have to take him off, like, you're hampering yourself of, like, okay, if Rudy was out, if he was listed as out on the injury report, you'd be like, wow, that's terrible for Minnesota. Well, if you have to remove him yourself because it's not working offensively, like the other team has won, it's a short term fix of, like, maybe we can get the offense going here. But over the course of not only a game, but a series, they're not going to hold up defensively if he's not out there. So I agree with you. I think Denver is absolutely going to force Minnesota to throw that pass to Rudy Gobert as often as possible, because even if it's good, I think they will take that efficiency of whatever it is over Ant just walking his way into the lane and either getting fouls on Jokić or just having no resistance at the rim. Like, I think Denver knows over the course of the game that is their most efficient path of defense. Is like, hey, we have a guy there that might turn it over, might miss at the rim, will frustrate guys, make them do that again and again and again. Because that's not even putting much pressure on us as a defense at that point. So that's what's going to be, and it's going to come down to that probably at the end of the day, because Rudy has to be out there for them to be successful. But if it's hampering the offense, then you would understand why the Wolves would pull the panic, push the panic button there and take them off for various stretches to be like, we need to be able to space the floor against this Denver defense and put all the pressure on that end of the court, regardless of what's going to hurt them on the other end.
Yeah, I think a good example of this was 2 seasons ago, and we're going to talk a lot about this series. We're going to talk a lot about that series 2 years ago, because obviously that favored the Wolves back then. But like, thinking back to Game 2, Rudy's out for the birth of his child, and the Wolves. That's as fun as a Wolves game as there is in Wolves history. That's the Jamal Murray Heat Pack game, and they win that game without Rudy. So I think that's like an example of, like, if you in a single game in the series, if you're taking Rudy off the court, you could win. Like, that could work. But like in the way of winning 4 of the next 7 games, I don't think that is going to be a proper strategy. And I think Game 7 of the season 2 years ago was, I think, one of the more fun parts to me, like strategic about that Game 7 down the stretch, was all 3. Cat was their leading scorer. They get blown. They got no shot of winning that game without Karl Anthony Towns. They were down 20. They would have been down 40 without Cat. But they sat him down the stretch of that game. They played Naz and Rudy, but I believe Rudy fouled out first, and then here comes Cat to come in and has the game sealing tip dunk. And I just think, like, that's a good example of, like, yeah, they did sit down Cat. But at a certain point, they needed at the time, their second best player to continue to make a play and finish out the series. And I think, like, there's going to be times in the game where you probably play Rudy less, or like you got an all defensive caliber player on the roster. And if you got to use them. And the path of the Wolves ceiling has always been through and I agree with you. Like, it doesn't have to be like every single time. Like, if the Wolves make their main action hitting Rudy in the short roll, like that's just not going to be efficient enough. But if they're going specifically, if they're going to pick up Ant at half court, like without even a screen, like they did at the end of that, like then okay, you have to throw Rudy the ball, and like I think Ant on that specific action Ant will do it because like at that point, like there is literally like there is no option. Like there's two people on him, and there's a big guy standing there. He doesn't have a choice.
Yeah, and I think what's important to note is like as much as Denver would like to make that the main action, it is too taxing on Jokic to make him go play at half court
Yeah,
defensively the entire possession. So it is like that was like their we're down 7 or 9 or whatever it was for most of that fourth quarter. But what's our best bet to try to get some stops? Then they push that button. So we won't see that all game, but there will probably be various points, especially if Ant's rolling, they'll probably switch to that for at least a little bit. Or at the end of games, they very likely will switch to that for a little bit. And I remember like Ant hit some crazy shots, obviously, for them to pull out, for them to force overtime in the Christmas game. But I remember with like 2 minutes to
yeah,
go in regulation of that Christmas game, like Rudy was there and and threw it to Julius instead. When it was obviously like the Rudy play, and so those are the moments where it's like, okay, like even 5 minutes left in a game, in a tie game, or you're up two or whatever. Like, are you going to make that play? Or are you going to go try to do something a little bit more difficult? And I don't even necessarily know what the right choice is in those spots, or I'm sure Ant doesn't either. And it's with 5 minutes left, if you're protecting a lead and you have to score, like, are you going to stick with Rudy? Are you going to sub out then? Like, I don't know. It's going to be a big push and pull of what's Ant going to do? What's Finch going to do based off of Ant's decisions? How is Rudy going to execute in the one time where he gets it? And if he doesn't execute, does that immediately mean like, okay, we're abandoning this plan? Like, there's going to be key moments, key plays at various points in this series because that's just how Wolves Denver games go, where it's going to be like, it's going to probably create a ripple effect. Like if Rudy executes, then he'll get another one. Like we saw in that game, like Rudy made the right play a lot. That's why, in the March game, that's why Ant kept doing it. But if he doesn't a play, then does Ant veer away from that? And then is it like, okay, well, if Ant's not going to go to Rudy, now Rudy can't be out there. Uh, I think it's going to be a really interesting dynamic to see kind of unfold, and it's often going to come down to how does Rudy handle that first attempt, because that will kind of set the stage for the rest of it.
yep, absolutely. All right, let's talk about the topic du jour this week. Can the Timberwolves flip the switch? And honestly, it's been the topic du jour for how many months? When did this start? Did it start even this year? Can the Wolves flip the switch? And I would probably say for me, like to a certain extent, absolutely. Do I think they'll play better than a 49 win team does in the playoffs? Sure, for sure. My question with this, and it goes with and on offense with guarding Jokic, with every part of this roster is can they do it to beat a Denver team that wants to win a title, that has already won a title? Um, can they hit like and really can they do it consistently? Obviously, you could be inconsistent about it for one series, but like if you want to win two, three, four, I guess what are your thoughts on can they the flip the switch? Is it bull crap or is it a thing?
I think it's a thing that they will. I agree with you. They'll play better basketball. I totally agree with that. They'll bring a higher level of defensive intensity. Ant will be great at various points in the series, but they can flip it and still it not be enough. Like I think that's
Yeah.
entirely possible. I mean, I think just dating back to last off season when Denver made all these moves to better round out their roster, and like you said, like the Cam Johnson thing, even with him playing poorly at various points, he's played better at the backstretch of the season here, really over the last couple weeks. Started knocking down shots, looking more confident on that end. But even still, like Michael Porter Jr. outplayed Cam Johnson this year. And that trade was still a win for Denver because of what Denver's been able to do outside of it. Like they strengthened their bench. Like Tim Valanciunas is for like plugging in for 10 minutes, a much better backup big option than they've had in the past. They don't have to just like have Aaron Gordon be their backup center and stagger the Gordon Jokic minutes. They don't have to do that anymore. Bruce Brown is
Mm-hmm.
an effective backcourt player for them reserve, and he's filling a very similar role to what he did in their title run. Tim Hardaway Jr. It should be right up there for sixth man of the year. Like he's been excellent and he's torched the Wolves this season. Like, so when they put this whole roster together in the last offseason, I think most people healthy versus healthy, had Denver ahead of Minnesota. And I don't blame them. And I think that's kind of come to fruition even in a year where Denver's been largely banged up. Like I just think Minnesota's waiting to flip the switch. Even if they do so now, it's going to take something kind of heroic to win this series, to where the idea was to position yourself better, to where you aren't the 6th seed having to play Denver. Like if you're the 5 seed or the 4 seed, you're playing the Lakers or Houston. And that would have been a much more advantageous series, to help yourself advance. They've given themselves the hard way, and now it's like, is your best, which I think they'll deliver a lot in the playoffs, but is that even good enough to win this series anyway?
Mm.
I don't know. Like, yeah, if they lose in 6, you'd be like, well, they couldn't flip the switch. And be like, they might have, like,
Me
and
too.
and and it still might not have been enough. So I agree with you. Like, yes, they can flip it, and yeah, they can still lose. That's kind of the reality of this series. Like, I legitimately think that, and I'm not trying to discredit the Spurs, but I legitimately think that the Nuggets are the second best team in the Western Conference, maybe probably in the NBA. And Minnesota has to play them round one, and Minnesota could be the third best team in the NBA and still lose this series. That's just the reality of the spot they're in. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if they find a way to pull it out. We'll see if injuries arise or whatever, or if Minnesota just hits a whole new level we haven't seen them hit before in kind of the Randall era. Uh, but yeah, that's the reality, I think, of waiting to flip a switch has left them in this spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the flip the switch is more of an indictment of the regular season than like a hopeful thing for the playoffs. And I kind of want to save that for the off season, in indicting the regular season, because like there'll be plenty of time for that. But I think this is the first series since the series between these teams 3 years ago where if the Wolves play their 100th percentile game, they're literally like the best they could. It might not be enough. Obviously, if they play a 100th percentile game, they probably will win this series, right? Like that's true for probably everyone in the playoffs. But like even maybe this is overstating, but like even against Oklahoma City last year, I think their 100th percentile game had a better chance of them winning that series than this one. Maybe that's overstating. Against Dallas, I think that's 100% true. Like if the Wolves played their 100, I think the Wolves best. Dallas is in that specific matchup. Dallas's 50th percentile is better than the Wolves, but I think the Wolves still had a better ceiling than that team. But this is the first time where the Wolves could play awesome and still lose. Oklahoma City, if they like Oklahoma City had a better gear than them last year, but it's the first time in a long time that happened, and obviously this should be a second round series. Like the Wolves are, I think, especially with the Lakers hurt. Like I think the Wolves are the fourth best team in the Western Conference, so in that way, it should be the second round series, but it's not because of their own their own doing. But let's do series predictions, and maybe if you feel comfortable doing like a finals prediction. I said Denver in 7 earlier in the week, and talking it out, I think I've kind of switched to Denver in 6. Certainly, I think Denver in 6 is more likely than the Wolves winning the series. But yeah, who do you got in this series? Maybe a game number, and then maybe NBA at large.
Yeah, I would also say Denver in 6. Obviously, then you're like, oh, Denver's going to come win a clincher at Target Center. But I think these two teams have both played well at the visiting sites, in recent years. Like obviously, remember it
Mm-hmm.
was just back and forth. Like the road team was winning more often 2 years ago. Obviously, that did not
Yeah.
uh, and obviously the Wolves won in Denver in March, and Denver's won multiple games at Target Center this year. Like, so it's not out of the realm of possibility at all that Denver can come clinch a series here. I just think Denver has too much offensive firepower. I think for Minnesota's kind of up and down offense, frankly, to keep pace with. And
For sure.
I think Minnesota's ball pressure is going to have to be so great. Uh, Against like Murray, and company, to where Denver can't even get into their actions regularly. And not that Minnesota doesn't have that in them, but when you haven't played it all year, it's hard to say you're going to sustain that ball pressure throughout the course of a game. Like I always go back to this. The ball pressure wasn't awesome last year either. It just nothing has come close to comparing to what they were able to produce 2 years ago. And that's why like they were able to do it to
Yep.
Denver. They were able to like pull it up on demand in the second half of game 7 because that's who they were. Like it was built into them. And I go back to last year's Western Conference Finals, game 3 against Oklahoma City. They cranked up that ball pressure and
Yes.
they made the Thunder's life hell. And it was like, yeah, this is it. This is the formula. and they weren't able to reproduce it in game 4 or game 5 because that just wasn't who they were. Like it was something they really had to muster up. That wasn't just part of
Mhm.
their DNA. And so I think that's it here. Like, would I be surprised if there's one game where they suffocate Denver and it's like, there it is? No, like I think there could be one of those in this series. I don't think there will be four of them. And that's the biggest thing of to why it's hard for me to pick Minnesota in this series. So yeah, I have Denver advancing. Uh Finals prediction. I think I would go Thunder over Celtics. Thunder, I don't even know if I would have picked them, but I just think their path is so much less
It's yeah.
difficult than them to not make the Western Conference Finals would be a stunner. And so I think they'll get there relatively, tax free, and whoever comes out of the bottom half of the bracket will have been through battles. And then we've seen it through the Wolves' perspective. Like fatigue matters, it just does. Like it's you can say, oh my gosh, they're pro athletes, blah blah blah, but like these playoff series are draining, and if you have to go through multiple in a row, like if Denver gets to OKC, we'll have been through two wars. And then to say like,
Mhm.
okay, now you have to go through this one against a pretty fresh team. So I like the Thunder because of their path, and that's why I'll just take the odds on that one, and yeah, that's what I would go with.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think the Rockets and the Thunder were the two big winners of the standings flip at the end of the regular season, with the Nuggets winning that last game to switch it. I think people thought that like the Nuggets. I don't think the Nuggets gave two rips who they were playing. Maybe they should have. We'll argue about that in the regular season, but yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think you kind of mentioned this earlier. I would probably pick Denver over San Antonio too. Maybe I'm overrating that last game of the season, but I think a lot of their inexperience might have popped up in a game in that game that I think they were trying to win aside from sitting
Yeah,
Wemby. So
the coaches
um,
wanted them to win.
it'll be a
I don't know
fun
if
break.
I don't know if the players understood the gravity of the situation. I don't. It's hard, I think, for
Yeah.
NBA players to be like, "Hey, here's who we would play in the second round." Like, I think it's hard for them to be like, "Oh, okay, yeah." Then I guess we really want to win this. You can tell the coaching staff really want it. They're like, "Get up, pressure, play hard," and the players were like, "Huh? Like, what? Why does everybody else get to rest and I don't?" Like,
Yeah, and I think that's why Denver won that game. Most of it was Wemby and Cornette sitting and Valanciunas had a good game, but like and Jokic did too. But like I think the Denver people, I think their players probably while they in the similar sense couldn't tell you what the exact playoff things were, but I think they saw like they're trying to duck the Wolves type of stuff, and the guys that were playing that night well bleep that, like no, we're just as good. My Iowa State Cyclone Curtis Jones was like, no, I'm bombing threes. What do you want from me? Like, no. So I think that on the last day of the season, that's the biggest thing. Is like it's almost like it doesn't even matter who's out there. It's like who cares more? Yeah, I mean, even Wolves Pelicans was like this, where it's like KG's in the building, the Wolves care 5%, the Pelicans care 2%. Well, there you go. The Wolves win that game. I think those last games are like that, and now we don't. Now everyone cares. That's the best part of the playing games have been awesome. Aside from LaMelo Ball injuring another player, the playing games have been awesome. The playoffs are going to be more awesome. We can stop talking about tanking until the offseason. Tired of that. We're just going to have awesome basketball for the next couple months, and we'll see if the Wolves are in it for months or seeming in Jason and our opinion closer to weeks. But Jace, go read Jace at the Pioneer Press. Do you have any? I'm sure you, like all of us, have put out plenty of content based on this series.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's the similar stuff to everybody. But I've just talked
Mm-hmm.
about the week of practice that the Wolves have taken advantage of better than anybody in recent years. I think I put it out yesterday of they're 4-0 in game ones where they have 3+ days to prepare for an opponent, a known opponent. Like when they know who they're going to play and they have 3 off days leading up to it. In the Finch Ant era, they're 4-0 and their average margin of victory is 17. So they take advantage of this prep time better than anybody. So that maybe sets them better up for Saturday. And if you steal Saturday, now all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, like there is a much greater path, like a bigger probability in your path to victory than there is otherwise. So that'll be it. I think if they lose Saturday and say they lose convincingly, it'll be like, that'll be a sound the alarm thing for me of like, yeah, it's game one, Denver won there, but the Wolves have been so
Mm-hmm.
great coming out of these series where they have prep time that if they don't win when they kind of have all their answers seemingly in their minds figured out, that would be bad. But then also like just at X Factors, talk to Mike Conley, and that'll come out to later today on just that's not necessarily a playoff thing, but like how he handled this whole season of his role changing every other day. It seemed like And then, yeah, and then I'm gonna write for Saturday just about what we've talked about all week of flipping the switch and the idea of that and like why that was a thing all year and the predicament it put them in. But we fleshed that out quite a bit here. So, yeah, nothing too earth shattering, but plenty of stuff this week, and then looking forward to writing more as the series unfolds.
Well, I think it's earth shattering. How about that?
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. It's not that they have to win Saturday, but I think what has to be revealed Saturday is like a path to winning the series. And if they play well and lose a close game, obviously they can recover from that. But like, if the stuff that we talked about just isn't going well on Saturday, yeah, we might that Denver in 6 might teeter towards a different number that I don't even want to entertain in this series. But
don't put it out there. Yeah.
Thank you, Jace. Thank you, Jace, for your time. Everyone go read Jace at the Pioneer Press. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening. We'll be back on after game 1. Go Wolves.